Evening, Prof. Luca.
Eccolo, ciao Davide.
Buonasera.
Buonasera, buonasera, tutto bene?
Anche te?
Bene, bene, sono come al solito in giro a correre. Stiamo aspettando il buon Luca Filetti,
Esatto. Sta affettando.
ma ha già tutto sia via mail che via WhatsApp. Come al solito c'è un po' di avversità al digitale a quanto pare, nonostante la giovane età.
Eh sì, niente,
Assurdo,
aspetteremo.
assurdo. A parte che vedo che c'è il buon Sergio in attesa. Ok.
Lo accettiamo?
Accettiamo, lo accettiamo. Ma Davide, ti posso dare l'ingente compito di fare da amministratore?
Prenderò questo carico con onore.
Mi fido ciecamente, eh?
Va bene.
Allora, aspetta, ti ringrazio intanto. Così ha il potere di decidere chi entra e chi esce.
Perfetto. Buona corsa allora.
Ti ringrazio. Ci aggiorniamo. Se c'è qualcosa, comunque, ho già scritto anche a Luca di chiamarmi.
Va bene. Ok.
Buona lezione, ragazzi. Buona serata.
Ciao.
Buona serata.
Grazie.
Ho potere supremo adesso. Ragazzi, aprite la fotocamera che è iniziata la lezione. Oh, tutti in silenzio, manco fossi veramente il prof. Ma adesso che sto registrando, sono curioso di vedere dove finiscono le registrazioni. Buonasera, prof.
Buonasera ragazzi. Scusate, stiamo attaccando la tecnologia.
Io ho rimandato con tutto, sia la parte scritta a mano che però scritta tutto nel computer. E mi ha detto, mi ha dato un'email il 24, mi sembra che non riuscivo a vederlo. E io purtroppo l'ho letto solo l'altro ieri. Ma cosa ci stai mandando giusto alla fine? Io ho rimandato giusto e segnato 70, senza commenti. A me e gli ho dato un'email. La prima volta mi aveva dato 70 da 75 col commento dicendo che la bibliography, quello che avevo anche scritto, non andava per niente bene. Ho detto, vabbè, la bibliografia penso sia almeno, devo solo scrivere, ho sbagliato, l'ho messo giù proprio il contenuto, ho detto no, il contenuto va bene, se siamo per 75, se ho sbagliato solo la bibliografia. No, correggere la bibliografia, l'ho corretto, l'ho mandato, ne ha fatto 90 su 100, mi ricordo. A me non mi ha dato commenti, però mi ha fatto incazzare e in più mi ha scritto un messaggio della serie io studiavo per gli ultimi che non hanno... Mi ha fatto incazzare perché mi ha mandato un messaggio dicendo adesso io riapro la disponibilità di inviare i compiti perché non li hai inviati. No, non era per quello, era perché ho preso Sergio, Mirko.
Io in realtà gliel'avevo inviati i dati, se poi non ha avuto modo di analizzarli, beh,
io ho scritto alla fine, cioè le mie volte 75 minuti sopra che ho sbagliato il video, perché non è
Ok, dovreste vedere anche da casa ora.
Sì.
Perfetto. Va bene ragazzi, iniziamo, scusate il ritardo, ma alla fine ce l'abbiamo fatta. Okay, guys, so we are at lecture number 7 of this course of strategic marketing. Is next week we will have the last one, so eight lectures. 7 December, exactly, the last one. And then we will have exam on the week later on, exactly. As you know, the evaluation is done through your active participation during the lectures, through the assignments. You already have all the 6 assignments, so there will be no new ones. Once you are done with all the 6, then you are already done with the 60% of the evaluation. And then we'll have this final exam in 2 weeks' time. There is not a strict deadline for the assignment, as you know, but please make sure to send all of them before the exam.
The 7th assignment is the last one?
Sorry?
The assignment of this lesson, the 7th, 6th, this is 6th lesson or 7th?
This is the lecture number 7.
7, okay.
But the assignment are 6.
Okay.
So last week I gave you the last assignment.
Okay.
Exactly. So just make sure to make all the assignments before the exam, because this is important for your final exam. So some advice for the preparation: of course, go through all the slides in advance, so that if any doubt or concern, you can contact me and we clarify, we go through together. If one model is not still clear, if on one of the assignment you found that it was most difficult than other, of course, let's talk it in advance. Then go through your assignment and also the feedback you have received. So every time, sooner or later, every time you send an assignment, you will receive feedback from me. So just go through that feedback so that in exam you can implement it and do it even better. And then, as I was saying, just make sure you complete all the assignment before the exam.
Advice to study also on the assignment or just on the slide?
Yes, my advice
will be helpful for the exam.
Yeah, my advice is to study all the slides. You don't have a textbook, so you can focus on all the slides and then on the feedback on your assignment. So every time I give you a feedback, you don't usually do it again, the assignment, but implement that feedback or think about, okay, how could it implement that feedback? Because then in the exam could be something that you will be asked to. And then of course, it's supposed to get an improvement. Maybe your assignment was already exceptional, but even when it's very well done, I always give you maybe a small twist or a small advice to make it even stronger. So both of them.
So I'm trying to open in the 7th slide.
Yeah.
There's a message, you need to be accepted by the director. I need to permission to go inside to the person.
For this one, the 7th?
Yeah, for the 7th one.
The last one in the classroom?
Yeah.
Okay.
I need I think it's a message here.
Let me write to Luca.
Ho aperto il link e mi dice devi avere il permesso e ti ha creato la presentazione per accedere. Non per un gioco, per
Quello da Classroom,
te lo chiede Canva l'autorizzazione? Te lo chiede Classroom? Sì. Canva. Ok. Ma intanto lo scrivo a Luca perché è lui che è l'owner delle presentazioni.
Okay.
Io le modifico, però è lui che ti deve dare tutti gli accessi.
In teoria l'app potrebbe farlo lei, se lei
da qui?
Potrebbe farlo. Tu sai che sei bravo con Canva. Come adesso so accettare quando non mi ricordo.
Non so dall'iPad come si faccia, dovrebbero esserci le notifiche. Questo qua è l'iPad di Luca?
Sì. Cioè, non so se il suo personale
Ah, ok.
della scuola, insomma.
No,
lui
mi sa che non si può da qua, Fede.
Non si può?
No, mi sa che non è
Ascolta. Che la pertineva qua a
Sì, o se no in caso si guida qui
Sì,
poi.
sì,
Comunque però è importante che abbiate l'accesso per l'esame. Quindi.
per quello.
Esatto. Perfect. Then what we saw in the last lecture last week, if you remember, we saw the role of a strategy, then the strategy groups, so what strategy group are and how they can shape our strategy, and then the role of the strategic alliance. And in fact, the last assignment, which is assignment number 6, was really about strategic alliances. So the assignment was to choose 2 companies that had done a strategic alliance, either successfully or not. And after briefly introducing the 2 companies, explain in detail what the alliance was about, assess if the alliance objectives have been reached, and which advantages were there for both companies, which challenges did the company face, and how they overcame it. Do you want to share it? If you have already done it,
Yeah,
you can do it.
I can share also with the guys on Zoom, or I just speak about.
You are. You can
I
come here so they can listen to you.
I can go inside to directly.
You can go.
And
Yeah.
share
Perfect.
my screen.
Yeah.
Così possono vederla anche, ma.
Perfetto.
Buonasera. Ciao. C'è lezione, vero? No, abbiamo
Siamo qui a giocare.
Perché abbiamo mandato il compito. Come? E che quindi ci li faccio tutti gli altri.
Piano piano.
Sì. Ok. Ok, si vede.
Ah, aspetta che magari posso, vediamo. Perché qui te lo metto qua.
Devo vederlo anche loro.
Sì, in teoria sì, perché sto condividendo anche il mio schermo.
Devo aprire il microfono qua. Ok, start.
I decide this one.
Secondo me chiudi il tuo microfono e vieni qua che c'è il mio così.
Sento un rodaglio quello.
Devi venire forza qui. Però comandi dal tuo PC.
Sì. Okay, for this strategic alliance, I decided to speak about Apple Pay and MasterCard. That I think is one of the most important strategies in the method of payment last year. When Apple Pay decided to go inside the shares of the credit card, the idea was why it's not possible to pay directly with our phone with not using the physical credit card, and making an agreement with the biggest producer of credit card in the world, in this case MasterCard. For Apple, it was like the best idea in this type of method of payment. In 2019, they also make an agreement with Visa, the second largest credit card producer in the world. But the MasterCard fee, every type of credit card like Amex, Visa, MasterCard, they've got the amount percentages of fee when you pay the bank fee and the credit card fee. And MasterCard, it was the most affordable for Apple Pay. And in 2020, Apple Pay also add to the ability to pay with also the smartwatch, with the Apple Watch. And from the 2021, introduced from every type of device, also from the MacBook, you could pay directly with Apple Pay, or which is the other side of payment. Okay, Apple Pay, when you put your finger inside your computer with a Touch ID, you can directly pay on website, or maybe you can purchase a game inside the Apple Store. And in this case, I put the most important objectives for this alliance between Apple Pay and MasterCard. Enhance user experience. The primary objective was to improve the overall user experience for Apple Pay customers by providing them with access directly to the MasterCard vast network of merchants and financial institutions. Increase adoption and usage. The alliance sought to drive higher adoption rates to Apple Pay among MasterCard users and encourage the increased usage of the mobile payment service. The global expansion. Both companies aim to expand their global footprint by collaborating to make Apple Pay and MasterCard service available in more regions and countries. And the last one is the security and the innovation. The alliance focuses on the advancing security features within Apple Pay, leveraging MasterCard expertise in payment security. And additionally, the partnership aims to drive innovation in the mobile payments space. These are, for my opinion, the four most important objectives that are on the base on this alliance between Apple Pay and MasterCard. I also write here that the integration of MasterCard's payment technology into the Apple devices has significantly enhanced the user experience, and Apple Pay user gain access to a broader network of merchants and financial institutions. Also, you can add your personal credit card from the bank. For example, in my case, I have got the bank account of Intesa Sanpaolo, and when you go to the bank, you can ask or add a second, maybe Apple Pay credit card directly to your phone without using the physical. They can add directly, how can I say, a virtual credit card. Because normally when you have your physical credit card, you must have to add your physical on your phone. But in this case, Intesa give you the opportunity to use only virtual credit card without put your physical in your wallet. And the collaboration also spurred innovation as both companies work together to introduce new features and technologies within the mobile payments landscape. And that's it.
Great, thank you. This was also one of the examples I put in the lecture.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you went deeper to analyze the partnership. I think it's a clear way to, where really a strategic alliance brought an innovation to the market, right? Because it was really an advancement at the end of the way people pay. So it's not just co-marketing or something to sell more something, but it was really changing a behavior at the end. So these are massive innovation and transformations in business. One comment I gave you is that if you believe that both companies have gained from this strategic alliance equally, or somehow one more of the other, because the way you tell maybe is just a
it's more like it's an opinion.
It seems that Apple gained the most, or am I wrong? I don't know. What's your opinion?
Okay, I think that with this alliance, with this partnership, MasterCard takes more an important value on the market, because I think everyone knows Apple. Maybe also children when it's got his first iPhone or iPad or every type of devices Apple. And this gave an opportunity to MasterCard to take an important shares. Also, he already is the biggest producer of credit card, but I think that the credit card is it's like a method of payment that no one maybe use every day. Example, my grandfather also preferred to pay with cash, but when we give to him his first iPhone for Christmas holidays, we add to his phone the Apple his physical credit card directly with Apple Pay, and it was like one year that he always told me this is a great idea, and I don't use my credit card directly to the phone. I had to find my wallet, where is my credit card, the PIN, the code. You just put your phone on the POS machine, and in 2 seconds you choose, maybe 5 seconds your purchase it works well.
So you believe it was an opportunity also to get an extra
Yeah.
target for
Yeah.
Mastercard that maybe was people not so used to pay
This is my
credit
opinion.
card because it
Makes
was
sense.
easier to pay and
Yeah.
to facilitate the payment, so it's a gain
Exactly,
also
yeah.
for Mastercard.
This is my opinion. I make an example of my grandfather.
Yeah.
But I think it's not only him, but every person in the world. I think that they think that this is a great opportunity and it's more quick and faster. Like method of payment. I think in my opinion, is the quickest and the fastest in the world. Paying directly with your phone.
Yeah. On the other way around, Apple could have made it. It's difficult for Apple to make it without
Of course,
Mastercard
yeah.
or Visa
I
because
think so, yeah.
they will not have the expertise and the
Yeah.
infrastructure.
Also, I think the cost, because the first agreement it was with Visa, but the Visa fee it was like a little bit expensive for Apple for all the users because we are talking about maybe a billion of person because I don't know billion but 100 millions of person and I think that increasing the cost is the best idea in this case for Apple, and this is why they choose to make this alliance with Mastercard.
Clear. So then it was also a business agreement.
Yeah, also yeah.
As an economic sustainability
Of course, yeah.
to be reached. Comments on the class?
It's clear. It's so clear.
Can you imagine some challenges maybe they have faced?
During this partnership, you mean?
Security, maybe.
Security,
Security.
It should be.
Yeah,
I mean,
because-
Mastercard should be.
yeah. And also Apple, we are speaking about the thing of two most securities company, Apple and Mastercard. I think there's no problem about security and innovation in this case.
In theory, should be a guarantee. Especially because maybe you're working with Mastercard, so if you do something new as a new player, so Apple changing the way you pay it, maybe that may arise some concerns, but then the fact that it was a strategic alliance probably ensures some security and efficiency also in terms of.
So the communication between the two. Yeah, for sure. Because everything that involves the payment now involves also of Apple involves now also the Mastercard payment.
Yeah. Of course, there is always the challenge to work in two companies and two different cultures and so on, two
Different ideas.
business, exactly. So that's one common challenge, but then maybe there are also some specific challenge on some strategic alliance.
Yeah.
So maybe think about it if you can imagine some challenges that probably they overcame because in this case we had a very successful strategic alliance. So for sure they overcame the challenges.
Of course, yeah.
But it's interesting to think about, okay, they could have this problem and then probably they overcame it somehow. Okay, thanks for it. The book. Surprise.
Seth Godin. Ah, ok. Interessante.
Sempre.
Ah, devo prenderlo?
Sì, è un regalo.
Come un regalo?
Sempre lo faccio quando uno condivide il compito, si becca un libro.
Davvero?
Un'altra sì, fino all'esaurimento scorso, però.
Ah, ok.
Volevate anche condividere.
Io sì, faccio un po' fatica a parlare magari.
Quindi tu, se non te la senti, no?
No, adesso adesso
Vai, tu dici.
cioè adesso adesso
Quindi tu non voglio che ti parlo.
condivido da Zoom.
Sì.
Ok. Allora, well, I choose the example of Apple and EMB. Apple is one of the famous industry in US for tech, and while AMB is a multinational tech and consulting enterprise, very famous over the world for hardware, software, and services, similar to Apple, that is known for software and user-friendly devices. This strategic alliance aim to gather the strength of the two together, to put together their strength and have success in the hardware and software world for enterprise. The primary objectives was to develop a mobile application for business of various industry type. So the objective of the alliance the first one is to build the application, of course. iOS is it will be a iOS app for iOS devices. And the target, of course, is various sectors of enterprise, so not only one type, but various types, such as healthcare, retail, banking, and travel. So all very interesting sector. The second point of the objective are the offer solution for enterprise. The idea of the collaboration is to integrate services and the analytic from IMB with the Apple devices to enhance a very efficient application for business. The third objective is to penetrate the market. So to expand the enterprise market with leverage by each other businesses. The advantages of the alliance is to expand the market. So the collaboration between Apple to penetrate in the enterprise market, that is a segment very well known from EMB. And widen offering in the sense of offer more for businesses with specific tools that add the user-friendly Apple system, but with the analytic phase of EMB. Encounter challenge, the two challenges encountered are the cultural differences, that the integration of the operating style between the two are different, and so they encountered the challenge in the communication field and the collaboration. And the competition, because both the companies faced other companies that offer similar content, which of course impact in the market share of the collaboration. They overcome this problem with aligned objectives. So they ensure that both are on the same page regarding the goals of the alliance, with the regular communication and alignment objectives. And the continuous innovation, so to contrast the competition, they continuous innovating their offer to go ahead a competitor. So at the end, they reach a significant market share and they offer a very advanced services. And at the same time, they highlight the complexity of collaborating between large and distinct companies.
Thank you. This is something I don't know personally, so it was interesting to see.
It was new also for me.
And yeah, you were mentioning a lot of the competition, right? So I was curious to know which competitors.
Everyone who have an application already, for example, in the retail sector, for example, there is already the Amazon application. So I think they struggle to take the new customer, because already the one that are big have the best share of the market. So they could struggle with the new customer to let them go with them, and I think.
Did they launch something in the retail market against Amazon?
No, I don't think. No.
So it was not a competitor. So, I mean...
No, it's just an example of a retail business that already have an application to sell over the world. For example, in this case, product.
And it was a successful one, because I don't see the result, or I mean the final result was what, this application?
At the end, yes, it was a success. They had some problem in, for example, for this collaboration, but at the end it was a success.
We don't know the final.
I don't found they didn't make an app, but I think they would provide services or application for businesses, but I think that are specific to the business in case. I don't think they make a general application that offer the retailer to sell in that application. I think they take case to case and adjust the services for someone who makes things and want to sell it online. I think.
So it's a B2B service.
Yeah.
Okay. Comments? Okay, I think it's very clear how they leverage on the strengths one of another. It's a little bit difficult to figure it out the final result, just because
maybe I could.
Maybe you can add some
example.
What really brought it, exactly what the strategic alliance brought to. Because in the case of Apple Pay is so much common, and we know the final result. In this case, maybe something that, even if it's more B2B or so on, is less under radar.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I choose the strategic alliance between Starbucks and Spotify. The collaboration objective was to implement and enhance the customer experience inside the store, but also for the employees. And because Spotify offered to the employees a premium subscription to encourage them to contribute to the music curation and the customer interaction, because through the Starbucks mobile app, customer gained the ability to influence the in-store music playlist. So they can choose to play some music that they want inside during his coffee or during his breakfast. And
this is not happening in Italy, right?
No.
So just in some countries, basically you
Yeah.
enter the Starbucks.
If I don't mistake, I think in US and also maybe in Netherlands, I think.
Okay. So you can influence basically the music in
Yeah,
within the store.
with the Starbucks app, you can there is a queue of every people that choose the music, and you can play what you want. So the implementation was about Spotify integration and figuring out that the integration allowed Starbucks customers to discover and save song played in the store directly to their Spotify accounts, so it's linked to directly. And the aim of Starbucks is to create personalized playlist for each store. So there is no one playlist for all the stores. Every store have his playlist for the customer, the usual customer that they comes in this store. So the in-store experience has a level up in terms of customer or engagement, and Starbucks make them more musically diverse and tailored to the tastes of both staff and customers. So there is not only for the customer, but also the staff that works inside. And the benefits, of course, the personalized experience, as we said, every customer can choose his music. Then we have a brand loyalty, because the alliance aim to make a more strength customer, connected them with on a personal level through shared musical tastes.
Do you believe this is true for Starbucks or Spotify or both?
Maybe is a 60-40. 60 for Starbucks, because of course without Starbucks the project is useless. But also for Spotify it can be a good marketing strategy, because I don't know any other platform for music that make this type of alliance. For example, also Uber, we said the last lesson.
Yeah.
And the marketing impact is the co-branding, because the collaboration featured co-branded marketing efforts from both Starbucks and Spotify, and promoting the partnership through various channels. And we have also the digital engagement, because the Starbucks mobile app is a platform for digital engagement, of course, allow the customer to interact with the brand, basically.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Also, this one I didn't know about. So I know about the Uber one, but Uber, if you think about it, is more an individual experience.
Yeah.
You get the Uber and then you decide your song.
Yeah, it's like a jukebox,
exactly.
like a jukebox experience.
A jukebox experience. True. And you didn't have to really have the Spotify Premium, right? You enter and through the Starbucks apps, you decide, and then you go to this.
I think by connecting the phone with the Wi-Fi, you can have the access to Spotify and play music.
Cool.
Thank you.
Very just interesting.
Did you know?
No.
Neither. Okay, cool. So thanks for sharing this assignment. So I think that overall you got the beginning of assignment. So the importance of strategic alliance. All of you, I think you brought a successful case. Of course, there are also strategic alliances that don't reach the objective for many reasons. So either then they fail in the market, or sometimes they don't even arrive to the market. So simply the two companies try to leverage the strengths one of another, or they see an opportunity, but then they don't reach an agreement, or they reach the agreement, but they realize that they don't manage to work together. So just take this into consideration. So strategic alliance is an opportunity, maybe so, but it's not always something easy to implement or that will give you a success. So today we will deep dive a bit more in the world of communication. Just one question that I was curious about: do you have a specific course on comms, on communication or advertising and these kind of things?
I think that we are a course like that the past year. Communication skill, esatto, communication skill. It was the course that we did last year.
Okay, but it was more about your communication skills or advertising?
How to write also, like for example, the business mail.
Okay, more communication skills.
The teacher gives us the guideline for example, write a business mail, or how to communicate during a business meeting. Or
okay, clear.
The past year, yes, second year.
Okay, clear. In this case, we talk about communication more in terms of corporate communication. So we were talking about communication skills, so how you behave professionally and so on. Also, companies are like person at the end, so they do have their values, their brands, and they act in a way that communicates something. So this is very important, and some university also give a full course dedicated to this discipline. That is at the end one of the marketing levers, but still good to have some, let's say, a bit of overview about this field, because of course it's very connected to your strategy. So if you're clear about objective, you know where you want to go, you know your strengths, your weakness, you know your target customers and so on, then you need to make sure that you reach this target, not only in terms of distribution and product, but also that you communicate to them in the best way. So we will see what is communication, the elements of the communication, and also how you can exploit it from a corporate point of view, the function and the advantages of the communication, and the objectives of the communication. So let's start from communication itself. Of course, is very true that in the world of business, communication is something that you can really not avoid. You see that, you know that there is also one way of wording, say that basically if you don't invest in advertising, and especially in time of crisis, basically you're losing, actually you're losing more money than if you invest it. And of course, with the help of a proper communication, information can be easily transferred from one party to another in the best way. We were talking about business emails and business meetings, but things also about brands, customers, and vice versa. So it helps, of course, the clearing of specific meanings and the transmitting of information as well. This is why it's important as a manager for you to really make sure to have significant objectives of communication that you will use to make your strategy stronger. So they will be useful and beneficial for the business that want to widen their reach, increase customer base, and of course also optimize profits, because advertising, if well done, is not a cost, but an investment. And then, of course, from connecting to consideration to conversions, there are different layers of communication, different objectives that you can reach. Think about that. Even when we are silent, we communicate something. So every time, even if you decide not to invest in advertising, not to do anything, you are probably either you are disappearing from the market, so you are silent, or when there is a crisis, for example, and you decide not to communicate, not to speak, not to stand up, you are already communicating something to customers that maybe can expect something from you if you don't do anything. So let's see about some important point in terms of communication in running a successful business. So communication, at the end, if you think about it, is a way by which meaningful messages can be conveyed across people to convey ideas. So you can use a variety of medium to convey this message, but at the end, it's really about meaning. So communication is defined as the process of understanding and sharing meaning. There is no communication if the two parts, they don't understand each other. And in the end, what you communicate, it always has a meaning, right? So there is a discipline called semiotics. Also here, some university have full courses about semiotics, but basically is the discipline studying this meaning and how each sign is associated to that specific meaning. And think about the fact that meaning of a same sign may vary across cultures. For example, the white color is one sign you can use to communicate something. In our Western world, can communicate elegance, for example, but also cleanness. So it's a symbol of hygiene. And in fact, many brands that want to communicate hygiene use the white color. And also when you have a t-shirt and you clean it, it's very white, very brilliant, and so on. This is something very easy to understand for us. It may seem obvious, but in reality, in the East world, for example, in Asia or other regions, the white color is a sign of mourning. So when people die, we use the black and we communicate by dressing black a meaning to the other people. In other countries, the same meaning could be done with a different sign, in this case, white, for example. So to a sign correspond a meaning, but always think about that we are within a culture. And so we are really influenced by this culture. It's not written anyhow on stone that black is about mourning and white is about hygiene, could be the opposite. So we are very influenced by this culture. And this is important both to understand some obvious things about our culture, being aware that we are influenced by the culture, but also to be aware of the differences when we act in other markets, for example, or even across different generations. You see how much science and culture evolves, and we are different from other grandfathers paying in cash and so on. So things change, are different across the world, but also across generation, across targets. So it's important when you communicate that you make sure that your sign, to your signs correspond the meaning you want to communicate. Then of course there will be a reaction in your customer base, but you need first to be aware about what you are communicating. So as a business leader, this is very important. And then the other part was about understanding, right? So meaning and understanding. Understanding means to understand the message, of course, and this can be something very easy, but that you need to make sure that there are the right conditions for your target, for your customer base to get the full message you want to communicate. Also because in a world where we are massively bombarded by messages and by advertising, probably your customer by default is not so interested into your message. So if you are not even fully clear about it, then of course your attention will be much lower. And even if you get attention, you will not have the final understanding for your customer, so you will not get your reach. So think about if you watch a movie but without, for example, the audio or without the pictures, at the end it will not be the same. I don't know if you are listening to some podcasts, for example, when you don't have the audio experience. The experience is slightly different. So they do some tricks in terms of communication to make sure that your imagination go in the direction they want you to picture. And the same the other way around. So if you see a picture, you can imagine what, I don't know, people in that picture are discussing about and so on, but there could be some signals in the image that help your understanding. And then the last part of the definition is sharing. Of course, when you communicate, you share something. So communication is really about sharing a message, and sometimes sharing also something more than a simple message. There are some advertising that are real actions. So they come with a full action from the company and not only a verbal communication or a verbal commitment. So let's say the communication is a culmination of all these components to form at the end something that is understandable, knowledgeable, and of course, really easy and interesting to get. And at the end, what you want to convey is an information, a message to a receiver or a group of receiver. Which are the elements of communication? Again, it can be very straightforward, but if you're not aware about all the elements of a communication, then you cannot either exploit it at max when you communicate. So which elements do we have in a typical communication process? Of course, we have the source. So the source is the creator of the message. In this case, if we imagine a corporate communication, the source is the brand or the company that is communicated. And the source initiates the message and sends it to a sender. So the source conveys the message with the help of verbal as well as non-verbal communication. In your course of communication skills, probably you address it. So when you communicate, for example, in a meeting, you communicate with what you say, but also with what you do, with your attitude, with, for example, how you are dressed, if formal or less formal. All of these elements convey to communicate something and needs to be consistent, right? Imagine if here we're talking about strategic marketing and I will enter just, I don't know, completely naked, for example. For you, it could be like a shock because you have a signal and then not a consistent non-verbal communication. So the primary objective of the source is to convey the message in a way that is consistent and easy to understand. Then the second element is the message itself. So, of course, from the source to reach a target and to a receiver, you need to have the message, the content of your communication. So think about a group of pictures that can convey a story or a couple of letters to convey a message. These are important to build your storytelling. So sometimes also when you send the assignments to me, some of you, they prefer to have a word structure. Some of you, they prefer to use some slides with some image and so on. At the end, it's a different way to communicate to me. In this case, you are the source and I'm the receiver, and the assignment is the message. How you structure the message, how you structure your assignment is to convey basically in this case, in what you think is the best way, your message. And then, of course, the message intention is dependent not only from the words of the message, but also the tone, the voice modulation, and also other manner in which the message is conveyed. So, third element is the channel. So, the channel is the method in which the messages are communicated from one point to other. So, you have the source, you have the message, but this message needs to be conveyed through a channel. Again, with the example of the assignment, which is the channel. You are the source of the assignment, you send it to me, I'm the receiver. The message is the content of the assignment. What is the channel? Text, okay, because you use, let's say, the word, the letters to convey a message. This is very philosophical, okay, but at the end we can consider it as part of a message because you use the letters to argumentate and to let's say, sum it up in a content, so in a message.
The lesson probably is the channel.
Sorry, I mean
The lesson.
a lesson, a lecture. Why?
It's the channel in the I transfer my message to you.
But you don't reach to me via the lecture. In this sense, like today, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, exactly. Or normally, for example, the email. Exactly. I was thinking about the email because usually but it's exactly this one. So the channel is the channel you use to convey the message. In this case, the email you send. So it's now is something very common, but think about 100 years ago, it was a channel that you didn't have at your disposal. So new channels may change the way we communicate. And then, of course, channels are essential to convey the message from the source to the destination. If you don't have the channel, you may have the message, but you don't have the way for this message to reach your target. So in terms of corporate communication, which are the channels?
Depends.
Give me some examples.
Can be mail, telephone, exhibition.
Good. Events,
Twitter.
social networks, meetings.
Verbal communication, like meetings, phone calls.
Yeah. Think about final customers. So it's difficult that a brand make a meeting with final customers, but maybe phone call, yeah. Emails, yeah, there is the email marketing. So you send a newsletter, for example, to your customer base. Yeah. Television is a big one. Advertising is all of these, but channels is where you put your advertisement. So television, outdoor, for example, you see on the street, the advertisement, magazines. Every channel you use, where you put your advertising, and that you use as a channel to reach your final customers. Some others. Think about the fact that radio, exactly. Radio is a very famous one.
Also video, sponsored video, YouTube.
Exactly. So again, the online and the digital environment. But think about the fact that also potentially everything can be a channel. You know, the guerrilla marketing that exploits some, for example, places, urban places, to communicate something, or for example, you can print your advertisement on the street. So potentially everything can be creatively a channel to reach a message. And very often when you use an unexpected channel, maybe you can surprise your customer base, right? So imagine you are in a fair. That's a very common place where to communicate your company and so on. But this is also very expected, right? People come there and they expect. But if you do something unusual or you exploit also other channels, independently from the message, you can have an element of advantages. The fourth element, of course, is the receiver. So source message through a channel, then the receiver. That is the one who receives the message from the sender. So basically, is your target. The receiver can be considered as the termination point of the communication process or originating source for the feedback process of the communication. In which sense? In the sense that if you are a company, you communicate to your customers, but then you also will receive a feedback, especially nowadays with the social media and so on. This conversation is becoming more and more bilateral, right? So we do have some mass media channel like television, where you put your advertisement in television and then you don't really get the reaction from who see your message. And then you have bilateral channels, for example, social media. If you put out there a post, people can comment and you can have a conversation, you can really engage, or oral conversation. So we were talking about events and fair. Of course, you can have an exchange. So it's not one-way conversation, but in this case, your receiver, after receiving the message, can give you a feedback. that you can leverage on. Of course, both the receiver and the sender must be on similar lines so they can understand the message, because if sender and receiver are not able to understand each other, then the entire purpose of communication fails. And this will not bring to your final result. It's like you speak two different languages. If you speak to a person that does speak your language, you will not understand. The same can happen in terms of advertising and corporate communication. The fifth element is the feedback. So in this way, bilateral communication, of course, after the receiver receives the message, the receiver comprehends the message and he will try to make meaning out of it, understand it, and then to give you a feedback back. So, for example, corporate communication as well as advertising has become increasingly into direction, as we discussed, thanks to social media, digitalization, and so the communication is not anymore one to many, so one brand communicating to a large mass, but is rather an exchange between brands and people, a dialogue, sometimes a one-to-one communication. The sixth element is the environment. So the environment is the external environment in which we receive or send the message. And this, of course, may influence the communication when the communication happens. So, for example, if you do a business meeting in a classroom or on a beach, you have a different external environment, and this can influence your communication and also your final result. So sometimes it's something that you cannot influence, but it's something that you can take into account to be aware of it. And then, of course, so it's important not only to choose the environment, but also to understand the environment before you start communicating. Then the seventh one is the context. So basically, the context is not to be confused with the environment. The environment is the external environment where the communication takes place. The content, the context, sorry, is more about basically imagine the level of formality or informality, for example, and some others variables that can influence your communication. So it's really where the setting of communication takes place. And the eighth, and if I remember well, the last one is the interference. So you can call it interference or noise. Imagine like that if you communicate through a radio, for example, or via phone, and then you don't have a good connection, you will have problems in terms of communication. But the noise is not only, I mean, this is just a stupid example to make you understand what noise is, but noise, it can be many, many things. And it's basically everyone that block or create an obstacle in your communication. So that at the end, your message either don't arrive or can arrive a bit modified. So not exactly the message you were meant to convey. For example, if a baby cries in a theater is another example of noise or interference with the message, and these kind of things. But also, for example, thoughts can be an interference. So imagine you're communicating to your target customers and you're very happy because you have a very creative message, you have chosen the right channel, you have a clear target, so you're reaching the target you want to, you have a fantastic external environment. But then people, we were discussing about attention, you don't have their attention, so they are not actually listening to you because they're thinking something else. This is very common in classroom. So now I'm speaking. It might be that my message don't reach you because maybe you're thinking about something else. And this is an interference. So I'm here in the right context, I'm doing my message, I'm the source, you are the receiver. In theory, you are the right target because you are the class, but then you are distracted, for example, or you are thinking about something else. You know, if the level of attention is about 20 minutes, this classroom is about 3 hours, so it's really luckily that you're not all the time connected to what I'm saying. And that is called psychological noise. In the terms of corporate communication, it's about the attention you get from your target. How you overcome it, making sure you have an interesting message, making sure that you are aware about all these elements so that you can check all of it, but also maximize the strengths of these particular elements. Or even if when you do, for example, your work and so on, you know that you need pause to maximize your efficiency, so to have a break or so on, because you cannot really stay concentrated all this time. So these are normal psychological interference you have in our daily life. So here you see some elements in action, because it may be that these elements I told you are very theoretical, and they are, but I just wanted to show you the power they have if you are aware of it, and how you can exploit in terms of communication. So here you see 3 examples of campaigns from brands or from institutions that really exploit some of these elements. In this specific case, is the strength of the message plus the channel. So imagine you have a message that is what you want to say, and then you select a channel that reinforces your message. Here you have, for example, one example, the first one on the left, is basically a message they put in the Juventus Stadium, and it was to make basically, let's say, to send a message to men looking to the football watch. Of course, when you go to the stadium, what you do, you take your position and you sit and you watch the game. So this was a guerrilla marketing organized by let's say, an Onlus, an NGO that takes care about the violence against women. And then the message was, don't sit and watch. So it was saying, against violence, don't sit and watch, react about violence. But how many times we see this message against violence? Every time we, especially in these days, now you know that it's really top of the news. You see in the news that maybe there is one person say, okay, it's wrong, and we are trying to influence the culture. But the fact that this message was exactly in that position and in that channel was reinforcing the message. So if you see a post on Instagram say, don't sit and watch, or if you find this message in a stadium where you are sitting and watching something, of course, is much stronger. Another example was from another NGO in the, let's say, not-profit sector. This is very common because somehow you don't have a budget to go in television and so on. So you need to find creative and cheap way to communicate. But it was basically to make the message that many people don't have access to food, and it was inviting people to buy food for people in need. So again, here you are bombarded by this message every time you are in contact with some of these NGOs, but they put the message basically during your shopping experience. So you was going to a supermarket, and then you see that without your shopping bag, you have this child, basically, and every time you put a food in the shopper bag, it's like if you are giving food to this child. And the message was saying that, of course, you can help and you can do something. So it makes you, it gives you the connection between the message and the action, the call to action I ask to my target. But the fact was not a standard post or a standard image, but it was placed in that specific channel. Of course, it made the message stronger. And then, for example, was a campaign for, let's say, pushing people to buy books. So we know the importance of food for us. If we don't have food, of course, we will not live much longer. And here was the provocation to have the same approach with books. So that is a food for our brain, basically. And then the idea was in some Bennetts in Italy, basically they packed this book and they were selling when you went to the fish area or to the meat area, you found this book packed with a price and IAN code, and you can buy it exactly like you buy your normal food, your pasta, your essential, basically, essentials things in your life. So again, if you think about it, the message is nothing so diverse, but the strength of this communication is really about the right channel. Then this is a video. Let's see if it works and if we have the audio. Here, the elements in action is the feedback. So we have an advertising from one baby food brand that is Plasmon. It's one of the most famous one. Let's see if it works. Otherwise, I will go verbally through the video. So in this case, it's an emotional video, right? Where Plasmo decided to basically create a song with rid of the hair of a man. But if you saw the beginning of the video, everything starts from a comment on Facebook of this man complaining about the fact that his baby was not sleeping. So it was already communicated, but they really leverage on this single feedback. So in this case, it was one single person, and they engage with something, with this one single man to create the advertising, which they exploited then overall because this campaign was going on TV. So every man could really recognize this need and create this emotional bond, this emotional bond. But they start from one feedback from one man, and they build the whole campaign starting from this feedback. Then another one, much more recent, maybe you have seen it in TV recently, is about Iliad. Always about the Iliad, the mobile company. So always about the feedback, let's say.
Il 90% degli utenti mobile Iliad è soddisfatto. Come loro sono felici. Che carini. Come lei, che ha scoperto un universo semplice e trasparente. Ma poi c'è lui, che fa parte del 1% dei non soddisfatti. Capito? Grazie. Continuerà a fare ancora meglio. Come con il nostro 5G, che oggi raggiunge oltre 3.000 città.
So here they build their advertising based on the feedback, and they use a completely tone of voice, completely different tone of voice from Plasma. Of course, that was an emotional video. This is more ironic. And in this case, they're communicating two things, right? That 99% of their customer is satisfied, which is one positive data. And then they are, let's say, addressing ironically that 1% that is not satisfied. Think, okay, thanks for the feedback. Every comment helps us to improve. So somehow is a way not to ignore also the negative feedback, but they are also reinforcing that the large majority of the of the customer is satisfied. Then you can still argue maybe it's not really this the equation, but of course there is a little bit of advertising communication. Maybe it's not really 99-1, but at the end, it's a way to really engage with your customer base and leverage on your feedback. And last one about feedback is a Christmas campaign of this year from KFC, you know, the chicken fast food. Yeah. So a lot of feedback about the fact, you know, that they're very into chicken. A lot of feedback from customers in US saying, hey, it's Christmas, you should do turkey instead. So let's see how they address it. So again, this is a way not to ignore the feedback. They receive a lot of complaints, say, hey, please do turkey, but the proposition of KFC is really about chickens. And they decide to stick with it, but instead of just sticking with it, they was aware of the importance of the feedback and they leverage it to make a communication that is creating a connection, is remarking your positioning, and also your ironic and engaging tone of voice. So you can even decide to ignore the feedback, but the fact that you are communicating something about it, it may really help you. And then some other elements in action, we talk about the external environment. This is a campaign from Amazon Prime Video, sorry, and that was basically a TV series about an apocalypse scenario happening in the north of Europe. So we don't have it in Italy. But basically, in this TV series, some of the most important monuments of the north of Europe was destroyed by the apocalypse. So imagine like in Italy, like the Colosseum or the Milan Duomo and this kind of monuments was destroyed in the TV series. And to advertise the series, basically they put this outdoor advertising just in front of that specific monument. So imagine in front of the Colosseum to have an outdoor advertising with the Colosseum under an attack from apocalypse, of course. So in this case, they exploit the environment to make this connection and to present the series in a way that it was stronger than just say, okay, it's another series about an apocalypse come in the next years. And then, of course, another element in action is the context. The context, so not the external environment, but the context, and the influence of the tone of voice of a brand. So here we see 3 examples with a very different tone of voice. Nike is, of course, epic and a motivator. You understand me when I say tone of voice, right? It's the way a brand speaks with customers. Every brand has a personality and a way to communicate that is different. So Nike is really epic motivator, Tiffany is elegant and quite formal, and Apparel, of course, is more lifestyle and uplifting. So in a normal communication and advertising, they communicate very, very differently. But imagine, for example, that there is an emergency or a crisis to manage. So you know that in this big corporation, there is also some crisis manager or even crisis management team to address what can happen outside. So you may be sure that in a crisis management, basically all of them could get more or less the same tone of voice, or much more formal, serious, right? Because there you need to communicate something else. You need to ensure, for example, that your products are safe, or think about when Apple communicate about, or Facebook communicate about privacy. These are very serious topics. And so in that specific context, you communicate differently. In this moment, I'm a professor and communicate in a way that is much more formal that I communicate with my friends on Saturday evening, right? But I still have my personality. I still be or try to be quite an informal professor, but it's not exactly the same communication depending on the context. The same apply to brands and corporate communication. So basically, before the break, is not a formal assignment like the ones you sent to me, but it's just an assignment in the class now. So I would like you to think a brand that you consider a great communicator. So a brand that for you is really good at communication. And of course, to explain why do you like how to communicate. And it would be great if you will be able to identify which communication elements they stress the most. And you can do it with one or two examples, like the ones I show you. So you go through the elements and you may observe that that specific brand communicates so well, in your opinion, is stressing one element or is leveraging on one element more than the other. For example, message, because they have a great creative message and they never communicate a message for example, in a boring way, or receiver and feedback like we saw, or context, or environment, or interference, because they are very good and get the attention, and so they minimize the noise and the interference in their communication.
Okay.
So 15 minutes for you to think about it. And then if you would like to share, we can share even after the break. Okay.
Sono più lontano, quindi
Comunque, prof, ho aggiustato il testo per l'esercizio. Effettivamente era incompleto e non chiaro perché non sono documentato abbastanza.
Questo è l'ultimo che dicevi stesso.
Sì, esatto. E cosa ho trovato? Che praticamente la maggior parte delle applicazioni che hanno sviluppato non sono disponibili sull'App Store, ma sono disponibili come servizio dalla IMP. Quindi se sei già cliente loro potresti incrementare queste applicazioni e appunto, come ho detto, i campi principali su cui si sono concentrati sono l'healthcare per le nurse, per le infermiere, per gli assistenti di volo, assistenti finanziari, assistenti di vendite e poi un altro trovato. E sostanzialmente aiutano chi fa tipo l'assistente di vendite a offrire il servizio di vendita. Però ecco, li trovo tutti sull'MP, quindi sì, c'è la parte Apple è il fatto che tu poi possa averlo sul tuo telefono, quindi sempre con te il tuo lavoro a fianco. Però poi chi lo vende di fatto è la IMB.
Capito? Ci sembra più che magari c'è più che una strategic alliance, sembra più che loro hanno fatto un agreement con Apple. Non so, che alla fine.
Lo sviluppo è che la IMB lavora con l'Apple, non lavora con Android, quindi se tu hai l'Apple poi sei molto più avvantaggiato perché hai tutto ciò che è il tuo servizio di IMB sul tuo telefono. Quindi hanno fatto questa first mobile proprio per spingere i prodotti Apple, che poi spingono, non sono tanto spinti come a livello di marketing, però
però una cosa vabbè, diversa B2B e si rivolge ovviamente a quei specifici specialisti che dicevi prima, quindi magari anche che poi diciamo spinta marketing un po' più lontano dal mondo Apple classico, diciamo. Sì. Però perché è appunto più sull'altro lato, piuttosto che le applicazioni sull'Apple Store che tutti si scaricano, diciamo. Quando domande cosa ci abbiamo nel Apple.
Probabilmente si è guadagnato la clientela delle aziende o di questi comunque dipendenti che aggiungono, cioè l'azienda ospedale introduce a chi ha il telefono Apple o il computer Apple questo servizio. Quindi probabilmente bisogna studiare bene chi sono i clienti dell'IMD, capire bene chi sono e dire ok, è per questo che l'iPhone si capisce meglio perché l'iPhone ha molto più da lavorare.
Sì. Così sembra più solo un abilitatore, no? Cioè, dici tu c'è la disposizione sui dispositivi Apple tutto. Però un po' debolino dal lato loro, diciamo.
Sembra, di sicuro non lo è.
No, credo.
Sicuramente c'è la parola chiave è l'uso delle aziende, cioè le aziende in sé. Quindi forse proprio, cioè alla fine se ci pensi, qualsiasi azienda, se si pensa a un'azienda non pensi che possa utilizzare di Apple o software Apple, di solito usano software Android, cioè Windows o Microsoft. E quindi probabilmente questa cosa li ha avvantaggiati per avvicinarsi al mondo corporate. Penso.
Sì, perché da sempre il mondo business è più posizionato sui freelancer, sull'industria creativa, probabilmente quelle posizioni lì. Però il 99% delle aziende usa, cioè effettivamente nel mondo corporate non usano Apple. Il design, sì, qualcosa su quei specifici settori. Però sembra una cosa ancora un po' di nicchia. Cioè, perché non penso che sono entrati in modo forte in tutte quelle industrie citate, quindi...
Come, cioè, nel senso, avevo visto che, avevo letto che avevano avuto problemi appunto perché poi i competitor hanno un po' fregato l'idea e hanno fatto anche loro delle offerte. Però di sicuro in quei settori qui hanno avuto probabilmente una posizione americana. Però non è giusto andarlo.
Sai in che anno hanno fatto?
Nel 2000, penso 18. Cioè, sono 5 anni fa, però non mi ricordo anche quell'articolo di ci circa in circolo.
Ma magari è una cosa che possiamo vedere un po' di più. Anche in altri paesi, non so. Non l'avevo mai sentito. Interessante.
Profilo 15 c'è l'esame. Venerdì pomeriggio.
Tutti i giorni che sposo
Oggi
il venerdì
allora,
è il peggior giorno per fare.
oggi ne hanno dato uno, il terzo.
Ah sì, non ho ancora visto però
Comunque mi mandano anche tutti gli altri. Si sono mancati un po', quindi devo...
sì, ci vuole la lezione per cosa.
Più piano, sì.
Sì, attraverso le slide, poi
Sì,
se
sì.
qualcosa non è chiaro,
Sì,
magari diverso da
sì, no.
scrivi che ci sentiamo.
Sì, comunque entro 15 faccio tutto.
Così, sì, anche un po' prima così hai amici che
Anche che si
sai dei dubbi.
cerco settimana prossima di comunque fare. Così dopo.
Sì. Hai più per capire perché magari ti sei perso la lezione, sai qualche dubbio.
Sì.
Lo chiarifichiamo prima dell'esame.
Ma l'esame sarà scritto immagino. Vado prima in chiesa a fare pregare.
Esatto, tre Maria,
Minimo. Alleluia anche si canta.
Esatto.
Dopo,
Forse così.
anche la benedizione. Sia mai, meglio.
Per il dubbio.
Ci prego.
Tutti iscritti, esatto.
Finora abbiamo fatto tutti iscritti.
Tutti i prima.
Non sono scritto bene.
A casa però non ho scritto da casa.
Tipo, settimana scorsa abbiamo fatto, una settimana abbiamo fatto un esame di finanza e chi era a casa per come dipende. Fino a che non perché non abbiamo fatto carte bene. Fino a che siamo stati carte bene. E invece chi era a casa ha fatto l'ora.
Mi sa che avremo
Cioè, ultimamente stiamo facendo carte bella abbastanza anche l'anno scorso. Tranne qualche esame tipo di statistica l'anno scorso che ho fatto su Excel. Facciamo carte belle. Diciamo qualcuno ci dà tipo il formato su Google. Scrivere che se no è lì bene. Però orario no. Sì, un mega presentazione.
Maria. Con Luca. Però che ci sta scritto perché non riesce a finire.
No, quello vale. Ma non abbiamo altri corsi orari?
No, perché abbiamo altri corsi no. Il secondo anno non più.
Quella che vedremo.
Poi in realtà adesso lo dico solo voi.
Di noi ci avessi di noi ci avessi
Quasi tutti. Sam non l'ho conosciuto.
E anche forse anche Enrico.
Enrico sì.
Lucas.
Lucas sono online.
Che noi di Bolzano a Milano. Sergio è venuto un sacco.
Ancora sì. Quando lo siete pure qua.
Quanti anni guarda? 10 minuti.
Sì. Okay, guys. Let's start. Someone of you want to share something? Yes.
Of course, I decided to speak about Apple.
Apple always, and today specifically. Two strategic alliance. You're the Apple man. I remember you wanted to launch the Mac machine.
And no, I always like fascinated from the communication when they did the keynote of all these every September or every year when they present new devices, new iPhone, new MacBook. And I really love with their presentation. Also, because I write a little note. I read my note about Apple. I said I appreciate their clear and conscious messaging, focusing on the simplicity and innovation. Apple try to focus on the sleek visual and minimalistic design in their advertising program, and sometimes Apple try to focus on aesthetics and simplicity when they try to communicate with the consumers. And I mentioned the typical advertising phrase, think different of Apple, and their think different campaign is focused on innovation and individuality, shaping their brand as a symbol of creativity and forward thinking. Think different.
Clear. Great. Yes. Indeed, is a very good example. It's a company that incorporates these values internally in the way they communicate, for example, when we launch a product, in their convention, let's say, that almost like a marketing campaign.
Yeah.
So public, but also with their portfolio and with the advertising. And again, I think they evolved a bit in the sense that at the beginning was really like a bit rebel. I don't know if you have in mind one of the first advertising that was 1984.
With Steve Jobs, you mean? No, advertising.
Yeah, it was an advertisement, so an ad.
Okay.
Not with Steve Jobs. With
okay.
Yeah, and it was a campaign based on the 1984 because it was in 1984, and this romance by George Orwell, and it was like a kind of okay, let's break the rule and these kind of things. And then there was a phase where they really compared themselves towards Microsoft, saying that they were so much smarter and so on. So there was a kind of some comparison in this advertising, and you saw them with a smart guy, and then Microsoft being an old and lazy guy. And then now that they are much more mainstream, they are more minimalistic, as you were saying. So very to the point. But within this evolution, they would always sticking to this value and creativity and forward thinking and innovation. So I think it's a clear example of excellent communication.
Maybe they choose Coca-Cola for his type of advertising linked to the holiday season. And I like it so much because they also create these products, the Coca-Cola, linked to good vibes, good moment with, for example, Christmas, family. So they summon these vibes very linked to this product. So I think it's a very good communication because I don't know any person, any people that associate Coca-Cola with a bad image of the brand. So I like so much.
Yeah, Coca-Cola is one of the main advertisers of the world, so one of the main investors in terms of budget, advertising investment, and they build a stronger brand despite having a product that at the beginning could make people very skeptical, because at the end it was a new drink in the market, a black drink. So you see this black drink, fizzy, and if you are not, now we are all use it.
Yeah.
But at the beginning it was something strange, come to a table where you usually drink either water or wine, and this soft drink, dark, that could be, you know, something not easy to assess in the market, to make it so worldwide spread. And they manage it through the power of marketing and brand image, and also very interesting the link you were mentioning with Christmas.
Può dimenticare le persone, diciamo, il colore brutto, marrone.
Exactly. The color was more at the beginning. Now nobody is more concerned about it, but now still there are some concerns about the level of sugar, for example, and the fact that it's an unhealthy product, is linked to obesity and so on. But still, the advertising is really linked to, you know, this power of sharing, to stay together, because those are crucial moments in terms of consumption.
Also watching
so the crucial link.
not only for Christmas or Easter, watching a film together or
Exactly. And you know that was thanks to Coke marketing that Santa Claus became red, because it was green at the beginning, right? So here you realize, of course, because they have such a power of investment, again, they invest so much money on it that they basically appropriate of an icon like Santa Claus, not a testimonial like others, and they made it very, very Coke, because at the end they made it red, and now, you know, the word for us, Santa Claus, is red. And it's exactly the same Pantone, red Pantone of the Coke brand, so very strong association. Thanks not only to the message, but in this case also to the massive investment. Other example?
Shoes, Save the Children. And I found their advertising on YouTube sometimes, and I think they are very effective because they invest, they highlight the urgency and the emotional things to do a very effective advertising.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not an easy sector, right? Because also basically it's strange to say, but they also have competitors. So the other NGOs are competitors of yours, and they all scream about, you know, this emotional need, and somehow even became something that unfortunately people get used to, because you see a lot of message with this specific tone of voice. But if you do it in the right way, of course, you are able to communicate in a way that is more effective. There's also the sense of urgency that you were mentioning, but somehow can become also backlash, right? When it's too extreme, because it's associated to negative things, and if you force it too much, then you have the opposite result. It's full of NGOs that are screaming for help, and unfortunately they don't get donation of these kind of things, because they don't find a unique way at the end to stay in the market. or an effective way to communicate the message in this case.
Infatti, regarding this last point you saying, the last one that I saw here, the last promoted from Save the Children Italia, is not very urgency, but is more quiet because focus on the dreams of children over the world, and is very emotional because those children have very simple dreams, but at the same time you can understand how important is little things such as writing, reading, or just the possibility to have the five senses and improve the other one if you don't have one.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing. And of course, yes, these are very good example. There are many other as well as bad examples. So we discussed at the beginning the bad and not effective strategic alliance that can be out there. Same applies to advertising and communication, and many epic fail where you don't have consistency between the message you are saying and the final results. Among the epic fail, I could mention in the past, for example, Novi, you know, the Novi chocolate, that is saying Svizzero, no, Novi. Basically, what they were saying is that they are Italian, because Novi is an Italian chocolate, so it's not Swiss. But according to a research they did, more than 90% of the customers, they thought that they were Swiss. So exactly the opposite they were communicating, because in the message they were stressed the fact Swiss, no Novi, but at the end they was not communicating Italian. Now if you see the spot, if you come across the spot of Novi in TV, you will see that they repeat 6 or 7 times Italian chocolate, and they close with Swiss, no Novi. But another one was Mediolanum, for example. You may know that I don't know if he's still alive, but basically the boss of Mediolanum.
Now there is the song.
Exactly. The fact, exactly. It was very famous, the fact that he was like doing these circles. Exactly. But that also was misinterpreted, because he was saying costruite intorno a te, meaning on you, and he was doing the circle around himself, that in that case was representing the bank. So it was not consistent the message. And now if you see the advertising, exactly the opposite. You have the people with the circle and saying, yes, Mediolanum is made for me with the circle. It's made also for me with the circle. It's made for me. So a company also can fail in the advertising, even big companies. But then it's important that you realize it, and then you can still change it without dramatic change, but doing some things that can help you to communicate what you really want to. Great. So now that we have seen the elements of the communication and also how you can exploit it to have a stronger comms, let's say the function of communication. So first function of communication, of course, is to inform. So here I'm informing you about communication and with this lecture, and many communication out there are informative. You may be informative about your product, the feature of it, about your service, your offer, and so on. So this function can be communicated verbally and not verbally, as usual, and is very basic. Then you have the second function that can be regulating or controlling. So basically it's used for regulating or controlling the behavior, inclination, and feelings of the participants. So for example, I could do something to influence you, to check and control you are following the lecture. And the same applies to corporate communication with people and consumer behavior that you can influence. Then basically, and also remember always about the fact that it's not one-way direction. So also who receives the message can give some signals if I see you and you do like this, maybe it's a signal for me that you are get bored, and I can control it in terms of comms. The third is social interaction. So of course, by definition, communication exists to establish a relationship in the social interaction between the source and the listener. So we already discussed about, for example, the emotional bond you can build through a brand and through a corporate communication, but also maybe I don't care about emotional bond. I want to communicate with an ironic tone of voice, we saw some example, and maybe making you laugh. But the fact that you are laughing watching an ad is something already quite interesting to think about. So it's a brand that is making you laugh, and you have you establish a relationship as a way to engage people through your communication. Then, of course, there is the third, that is motivating or persuading. We were discussing about, for example, convention and so on, business meetings and so on. You always want to motivate people, for example, your employees, or you want to persuade other stakeholders or your colleagues about your points. So communication has always this also this aspect, and of course is something that is very helpful for you also as a manager, not always as a company. Then we have the fifth function, that is about reduction, misunderstanding. We discussed about interference and noise. Of course, communication is very important in reducing confusion, conflict, misunderstanding within your company, with your stakeholders, and also externally. Then the sixth is decision making. So we discuss about meetings, for example, and well, if you want an effective decision making process, of course, this go through a clear and straightforward communication. Communication is a tool for you to take effective decision, and especially when these decisions need to be shared and are collective across different levels of organization, of different colleagues or different stakeholders. The seventh function is to solve problems or troubles. So you can do it via communication. We're talking about crisis management. You can have a reputation crisis because maybe there is a scandal linked to your brand or to your corporate. Then it's very, very important the way you communicate, the way you react to that people. You know that there is basically some shitstorming sometimes happen to some specific company, and they can arrive even to some boycotts. So people boycotting your brand and your product. And then in this case, communication is a key lever to regain this trust and to solve this problem you may have your customers. So these are 7 main functions of the communication. There are also some others, but always consider that all of them might be useful in strategic management, and not only in terms of persuasion or information between people. So yes, they are true between us because we communicate each other, but the same applies to brands communicate to larger groups or some specific target group. So if you are a good communicator, if you are aware of all the elements or the process of a standard communication, as we have seen in some example, you can exploit it, you can leverage it instead of just receiving. And then we see some advantages of good communication. So communication is, of course, an integral part of great leadership. I heard you before speaking about leadership. I think you have a course about it.
Yes, we are good, excellent this Monday.
Okay.
The final
Cool.
lesson.
Oh, cool. So for sure, you may have addressed the fact that very often a good leader is also a strong communicator. And of course, it enhances all work for the organization very well. So some advantages you have here in the lecture is for sure that increase the employees' efficiency. So if you are a strong communicator leader, if you are clear about communication with your employees, of course, this communication will help employees to perform better. So at the end, it even influences the business results if you have a good communication, internal communication. And then, of course, you will make sure that all the people have the knowledge and the information they need to make their work at best. So the second advantage is that enhances the business performance, both in terms of a good internal communication for your colleagues, but also in terms of external good communication. So all the advertising we saw, they will have an impact on business. Of course, it always depends on investment as well, fair enough, but there are brands that invest a lot and they do it better advertising, and maybe they get less impact than a company with lower budget but communicate very, very effectively. Then if you are lucky enough to have both things, so a great communication and a great investment, maybe you reach the top level, like the example we were mentioning, Apple and Coke and so on. For sure, they are also great investors. And then, of course, the third is get the message to the customer, right? So in a world where everyone tries to speak to people, if you are a good communicator, you will be able to stand out to make sure that your message will receive more attention and it will be understood by customers. So really always important to think how to get attention. Advertising live with attention, basically. And then the third one is about storytelling. Of course, we also saw some great leaders. We mentioned during the course Elon Musk, we mentioned Steve Jobs quite a lot. They were extreme, they are in the case of Elon Musk, great communicators, and they not only communicate effectively, but they also put in place a storytelling about themselves, about the company, and the same applies to brands. So a brand can do a storytelling. We saw the example of Plasma, for example. They built a storytelling about the campaign, and they really was able to tell a story. And what people really buy usually is a story. So if you want to engage with them, if you want to build this relationship, either is emotional or is more with a different tone of voice, like the Nike one or the Apple one we saw, at the very end, an advertising is always a story. So it's not about only saying, okay, buy my product and get conversion, but if you have a powerful story behind, then you will much more able to build a stronger storytelling and therefore to influence the behavior and the perception about your product. So when I drink a Coke and I am in a family, probably I'm buying not only the Coke itself, but I'm buying that set of values that are depicting in the advertising. So the sense of sharing, the sense of staying together. When I buy Apple, I'm not only buying an amazing product, well designed and so on, but I'm also buying the storytelling they sell about the Apple product. So the creativity behind it, and all the innovation and forward thinking. So it tells something about myself, and it's something that I can relate to. And this is the link between a brand and then the single target. So remember, there is always an exchange of meanings, ideas, opinions, facts, and emotion when we are communicating. And this is, of course, an essential condition for the human being to exist, and in the end for a brand and for a company to be in the market. So if you want to make sure that you have your point of view understandable to the people, then proper communication is something that you are really going to need and to allocate resources. Then objective of communication. So we saw what is communication, the elements of communication, some advantages that you can get if you are a great communicator and if you have an effective communication and marketing campaigns and advertising and promotional activities with your company. But then what you are really aiming to. The first level is to build awareness, right? This is the first level of the funnel. Of course, awareness is essential for business. The better you communicate with people, the more awareness they are going to get for the brand. So it's really about people to know about you. If you are a small company or if you are a new brand in the market, people don't know about you. So the first objective of advertising is, of course, to get your brand known, and so to make people aware about the fact that you exist. The second level is to build consideration and interest. So, of course, when your client or your customer is seeking something, you need to ensure that you can provide them with exact things that they need, but also this is exactly the moment where you need to communicate that you can provide them with, that you can respond to a need of them. And of course, they can be very much aware about you, they can know that you exist in the market, but then if you have not an interesting proposition for them, then they will not consider you, and that's why we speak about consideration. They will never consider you in the purchase moment. So when you are going to make a purchase, you will have several options, but you will automatically exclude the brands you don't know because you don't know them, so you don't even consider, and then the brands you know, but that you don't consider suitable for yourself. So this is the second level of the funnel. And then the third level is conversion or final purchase. So you got the awareness, people know who you are. You got the consideration and the interest, people may consider you and are interested in your product and your service. And then here is really about the conversion. So make sure people that this interest is converted in a sales, because at the end, this is what your business is about, and this is also the final goal of a communication and to an advertising strategy. So even when you are putting on air, let's say, when you're communicating something that is not strictly related to your product only, maybe you're doing a great storytelling, you'll communicate some values and so on, but also the fact that you want to engage with your customers is at the very end a way to sell more. So even if Coke is communicating the value of sharing to stay together, is the end this is done because thanks to this emotional bonding, they will sell more. And the same applies to Apple, of course, that you know very well because you are a victim of their communication. So across the funnel, awareness, conversion, interest, you have, they got you in all of these levels. But it's not true for all the customers. Some of them, almost everyone knows Apple. Some of them may not consider it because too expensive for me. I prefer a smarter choice. Exactly. So this is a simplification of the funnel, but basically, thanks to an effective communication, you can make sure that for your specific target, you reach all of these levels. And you see that there is even a deeper level after conversion that is about loyalty and even advocacy. So you see that it's going narrower and narrower because awareness is quite easy to get, but then it becomes more and more difficult to get consideration, to get conversion from people. Some of the people you convert, they will become loyal to you. And a small part of the loyal customer, they can even become an ambassador. I think for Apple, we have an ambassador here because we are not only buying products and not only loyal, but also you want to speak for Apple and you always speak about it in your examples. So maybe you can relate it to it and think about yourself, not only as a customer, but even, and not only to a loyal customers, but even to a kind of ambassador of a brand. And this is the latest level for a brand to reach, because you have the people speaking for your brand. And when you reach that level, basically you don't even need to advertise anymore in theory to that specific target, of course. So the last point before I leave you is about the difference between internal and external communication. So for now, we distinguish between the communication across people, so the personal communication, and you even have a course about communication skills. Now we were talking about corporate communication, so how companies and brands communicate. But then there is a difference, of course, between the internal and the external communication. When we talk about internal communication, basically is all the set of information exchange which occurs inside the organization with the internal audience. So basically, when we were mentioning the employees and so on, this is all about internal communication. And it has the same rules and the same elements of the communication that we saw at the beginning. So there is a source, there is a message, a channel, and there is the environment and so on. So you can control all these elements to really make sure that you have a strong internal communication. And this is key, as we saw, for business performance, but also for people motivation. And if you get that sense of purpose for working for your organization by employees, they will be there not only for the salary, basically, but also for a stronger sense of how being in a relationship with the company itself. I'm looking at you because maybe you are in your family companies, and you may use this internal communication to engage more and more with people, especially if you have a dynamic company. There are companies that don't have problems in terms of turnover, but if you have a turnover problem, then maybe you can work on this kind of internal communication to engage more and to retain more your top talent. Okay, so of course, this is a lot of advantages that you can go through in the slides. It's very straightforward. And then the external communication, of course, is about all the messages and the communication outside and beyond the organization. It may be B2B, it may be B2C, or it may be also toward to your other stakeholders. When you communicate with your suppliers, when you communicate to your other stakeholders or investors, for example, you are not doing an advertising, but still you communicate externally, and you will need some of the elements we have seen now together to make sure that this communication is well done. So really it plays a crucial role in communicating your brand purpose, personality, tone of voice, and basically the development with public out there, meaning customers, but also, for example, stakeholders, but also, for example, institutions. So you may engage with some institution, which is something that if you have big corporation, you will be exposed to. So very often you see the government, for example, or some other institution doing some partnership with the private sector that also needs a well-done job on both sides. So this was the last chapter. So next week we will have the last lecture. And before the course, I will send you a feedback survey. So it's anonymous, so you can write the worst thing you think, like the professors. The worst teacher in the world is terrible. This course is useless. So just being honest, because of course it's important for me to be very frank with you. It's the first time I'm doing a full course. I just was having some specific lecture in university. So for me, there's nothing more precious than your feedback to improve course after course, and to also not only about me, but also the course itself. For example, one proposal I'm doing is to change the name from strategic marketing to strategy or strategic management, because at the end it's not only about marketing. Some models you have seen are not related only to marketing. So we'll ask your opinion about it, plus strategy, some other components.
Strategy and the marketing.
We will have the sample. I get some input from you. So I will do it in the classroom. I will set the link, and then that's it. We will not have another assignment for next.
The sixth one was last one.
Exactly, you have 6 assignments, and now you have these 2 weeks to also
To
go through it or recover the ones you have not done yet, maybe. And then please use these 2 weeks until the exam to clarify any doubt. So if one lecture is not clear, if one model is not clear, one feedback to an assignment, if you don't agree or you don't understand, let's discuss in advance so that the exam will be super easy
Solo una
for
cosa
you.
velocissima e di appunto avvisare magari l'avviso di Luca per sbloccare la presentazione a Canva che possiamo aprire.
Esatto, l'ho avvisato.
Sei riuscito a aprirlo?
L'ho avvisato, mi sa che dipende un po' dalle persone, però quello che voglio fare è anche fare il PDF di tutti.
Ecco, sì.
E ve lo posto dalla
sarebbe
prima
meglio,
all'ultima.
sì, sarebbe meglio.
Così ce l'avete in un unico posto,
Esatto.
anziché entrare.
Sarebbe meglio.
Però sì, non so perché alcuni riescono e altri no.
Sì, ecco, se riusciamo ad avere il PDF da uno.
Esatto, farò così.
Perfetto. Ci vediamo il
Grazie
7
mille.
Arrivederci, profe.
Arrivederci, la ringrazio.
Arrivederci.
E io